My name is Jared Meyer, and I work for NinjaTrader in our Denver office. We have a very special event for you today with Phil Antonson of Lucrum Trading System. I just want to mention it's important to understand that there are substantial risks in trading commodities, futures, contracts, and forex. You should carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you, and that will depend on your specific circumstances and financial resources. It is possible to lose all the funds deposited with your broker. You could even incur losses beyond these amounts. Please inquire at www.ninjatraderecosystem.com/risk-disclosure for more information or for a copy of the CFTC Forest Disclosure. Also, please remember that these trading webinars are not a solicitation or recommendation, but simply educational in nature. All right, some more information. This presentation is presented by NinjaTrader LLC, which is the technology company responsible for developing and supporting the NinjaTrader trading software. Brokerage-related questions should be directed to NinjaTrader Brokerage directly at area code 312-262-1289 or by emailing brokerage.sales@ninjatrader.com. All right, so we are very excited for this unique event in which Phil Antonson will demonstrate how to develop, implement, and execute an automated or semi-automated system with the use of Lucrum Ruby and chart indicators BloodHound and BlackBird. Thanks again for your attendance today. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome to the NinjaTrader Ecosystem webinar room, Phil Antonson. Please take it away, Phil.
Great, thanks, Jared. Thank you all very much for joining me here today. My name is Phil Antonson of Lucrum Trading Systems, and today we're going to go over a snapshot of the Lucrum Ruby trading system with its features and functions, and then we're going to look at the usable outputs of Ruby using Shark Indicator's BloodHound software. If you're not familiar with Shark Indicator's BloodHound software, I will be going over that in a little bit more detail later on. Then we'll go into building a basic strategy using BloodHound and Ruby. And then we will take that BloodHound strategy that we create and use their BlackBird software in order to automate and test the system. And at the end of the presentation, we will have a random drawing for a free lifetime license of the Ruby system. So stick around for that. If you're in attendance by the end of the presentation, you are automatically entered to win that license. So a little bit about Lucrum Trading Systems. Lucrum is a provider of both discretionary and automatic trading tools for both NinjaTrader 7 and 8, as well as a trading education and system development consulting company that is objectively oriented to providing our customers with the resources and tools necessary to empower profitable trading. And a little bit about me. I'm a trader of over 10 years. I was a hedge fund analyst and trader specializing in the metals and energy sectors. I went to the University of Wisconsin for finance and economics, and I currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia. So first is, what is the Ruby system? Ruby is a visually oriented trading aid, which allows you to quickly and easily identify trading opportunities by systematically analyzing price momentum, breakout ranges, and deviations in price. This toolbox of trading resources provides visual cues as to when trading opportunities present themselves. So for the next few slides, we're just going to go over a few screenshots of having Ruby applied to different charts, and then we're going to go over some of the different components of the system and how you can use them. All right, the first screenshot here is of a very basic chart with a Vision Renko bar type, and this is the bare bones Ruby system. What you have here is the obviously a very different change compared to the standard, red and green open, high, low, closed bar charts. This is going to be a little bit more uniform with unidirectional colors, with the violet and green, with these gray bars that are sort of the intermediary bars, which signify likelihood of retracements within the chart. Next here are the trade trigger signals. And the trade trigger signals are when the system has identified possible trading opportunities, and they will be signified by either a green up arrow for a long signal, a red down arrow for a short signal, or as you can see in between the initial signals you have these yellow, whether up or down arrows. These are the extended trade trigger signals. And these are basically saying that the system identified components of a signal that would suggest that there is going to be either a continuation or a possible reversal once those have been formed. Next we have the MMA, which is a modified moving average. It's a linear regression moving average instead of your standard exponential or average true range ATR moving average. So it's going to be a little bit quicker and faster to adapt to different, more whipsaw market conditions than your standard EMA, which is shown here, identified on the right. And the EMA here, as well as the MMA, are color-coded. And with the color codes, you can actually access those outputs in Ruby so you can build systems based on the momentum of those different moving averages. All right, next we have the pattern identification. And the pattern identification uses the range pivots that are based on the deviation of price between certain price ranges. And then when they form, if there are patterns apparent, it will post them here. So you can see an ascending channel. I got an ascending channel here. And the ascending channel is basically a channel that formed, oops, it's stuck, there we go. Yeah, so it had a channel that was formed, and the anticipated breakout range for an ascending channel is a breakout here to the low side. So once it breaks past that range, it's implied to be a bearish signal. Next we have a rising wedge. It's a little bit off screen here, but again it's a rising wedge that has, again, an implied breakout range to the bottom side. And here, the opposite of the rising wedge is the falling wedge that has an implied breakout range above. So those they're kind of nice to take a look at. You get a quick snapshot as to what some of the various price patterns are doing in forming, and instead of having to analyze and look at each chart in more detail, you can go ahead and use those predefined patterns that the system identifies. All right, we also have the Fibonacci extensions. Like the pattern identification, they are formed from the range pivots that are created from the price deviation, the high and low ranges of the previous price points. And the Fibonacci extensions, what they do is they allow you to project where some of those key Fibonacci levels are in future charts and future price movement. And some people like to use the Fibonacci trading methods in order to find support and resistance levels. Some use it to identify some breakout ranges. And you can incorporate that as well with the Shark Indicators BloodHound software, so you can build systems that actually look at these Fibonacci levels as they create themselves as the chart progresses. And what's also included with the Ruby system is the Vision Renko bar. And the Vision Renko bar, if you are not familiar with how Renko bars work, is they are non-time denominated charting methods, which means you identify the amount in ticks that you want price to go in a certain direction before the bar closes and creates a new one, again with that static number of ticks that you define. And with many Renko charting, especially if you're looking to do any type of automated trading, is they operate with a level of hindsight bias, and it operates with the thought that once a bar closes, you will be able to get in at that same price that close is formed in the next bar formed. So with the Vision Renko, you can see here that there is going to be a 1 tick offset for each bar that's formed, and this will allow you to accurately backtest the system because of that 1 tick offset, and it operates with a better notion that once the bar closes at a certain price, in order for the next one to form, the price is then going to be either that much higher or lower, which is then incorporated with that offset. And with the standard Renko charting, It's not going to be very accurate, not only for live trading, but for any type of automated system that you might be testing or running. And here's just an example of how you can customize Ruby with the color schemes, with NinjaTrader 8 having a more default darker background than the previous NinjaTrader 7 has a more default white background. Of course, you can change it, but it allows you to change the bar colors, change basically every component of the system that fits your style visually. And not only visually, you can change all the components to it to fit your various trading styles, whether you are a long-term trend trader, swing trader, counter trend trader. There's a plethora of different components and parameters within the Ruby software that allows you to tailor it specifically towards your specific markets and trading styles. Here we're going to go over just a quick few examples. This was taken a few months ago of the 5-minute crude oil chart. This is default parameters of the Ruby system, so you can see here that your standard chart that would have the red and green, a little bit hard to identify exactly when there's opportunities to trade. This system provides you with a very uniform, and with the trade trigger signals, it lets you fast track into analyzing that trade and that position than actually trying to analyze where you're going to enter. And none of this will repaint, so when you see these charts, anything that I've had in these examples, all the colors of the charts, once the bar closes, that is a color it stays. Once a signal is formed, that's where the signal stays. There will not be any repainting when it comes to those components. The only thing that will repaint are these pivot points. To do pivot points, it's virtually impossible to have them form as they would in historical charts as they do live. What these do is they will continue to update as the price continues. So say price was here, the pivot point would have continued there. As it retraced a little bit and price continued up higher, that pivot point would then continue to move until it had a significant deviation in price to the lower side, which would then close this pivot point, and this apex would then form the next pivot point, which would then follow the same rule where it will continue to form as price reaches new lows if the pivot point is forming lower, or new highs if the pivot point is forming higher. So those are the only conditions of the Ruby system that will repaint, but everything else and everything else that's actionable will not have a repainting function. So here is a 20 range chart of the NASDAQ. Again, this was a few months ago. And this just showcases that no matter what type of time frame that you're working with, no matter what type of instrument you're using, there's really either components of Ruby or Ruby full-holdedly that you can actually use to incorporate into your trading styles. So now we're going to move into having Ruby incorporate with BloodHound. So if you're not familiar with what, that didn't get incorporated, but for so some of you who are not familiar with BloodHound, as you might be asking, what is BloodHound? What is Shark Indicator's BloodHound? So what it is a tool which allows for rapid system development from the testing side of things to reiterating your strategy to actual deployment of a live automated system. And what's especially cool about this software is that there is no programming knowledge needed. Its easy to use logic matrix and output window that I'll show you here in a little bit provides a complete what you see is what you get development situation. And it's compatible with many third-party indicators as well as many of the default indicators that you will find with NinjaTrader. So now I'm going to jump over to screen sharing here. All right, looks like you guys can see it all right. So what I did is I just pulled up NQ chart. This is a 15-minute chart. This is September 23rd of this particular segment. The first is I am going to go ahead and load up LTS Ruby on it. So this is what Ruby will look like on a chart with its default settings. It takes away the red and green, the sort of indecisiveness of the chart. It makes it more uniform and easier to identify some different opportunities with it. And now we're going to go into Chart Indicators BloodHound. And it will pop up this little sub-window on your chart here. And we are going to load up the LTS Ruby template. And these templates will be provided with you for you if you were to purchase Ruby, or if you already own Ruby and you don't have it, I will be happy to send it out to you. Alright, so we're just going to update real quick. So we have BloodHound active. And we can look at some of the various outputs that Ruby has, which BloodHound can then identify. So first I'm going to check bar direction up or down. And this is essentially going to be the color of the chart. So we have both the violet and the green. When you select this, the BloodHound system is then going to read which bars are green, which bars are violet, and it's going to associate them with this bar up or down function. Here we have the modified moving average direction. This is going to be the color code of the MMA. Whether it's the teal or the red, BloodHound is going to identify what the output is of that MMA. And here we have the entry trade signals. The entry trade signals are going to be the red or green arrows that are going to be throughout your chart. And what is important to note when working with BloodHound, that sometimes when you're working with a template, you might have your indicator parameter set differently. So say that your indicator for Ruby is different. Let's just do 25. So that slight change to the parameter of Ruby, you can notice that the bars that BloodHound forms, for which identifies the trade trigger signals, don't align anymore. And that's because the indicator values that I had are different than what the template is in BloodHound. You want to make sure that any parameter values that you may have changed in your indicator on your chart are going to accurately reflect what you have in BloodHound. All right, next we have the extended trade signals. And the extended trade signals are going to be the yellow signals that are, again, where the system identified as a possible continuation or reversal. Let's see if I get a few good examples of, here's one more here. But these are more or less going to be conditions that you could either scale into a trade or scale out of a trade. And in our example that we have today, we're just going to use them as an exit condition. So we can have something as simple as having an entry here, and we can have an exit condition of an extended signal. And just going to cruise through some of the rest of these outputs here. These are not all the outputs. These are majority of the outputs. There are a few different ones that you can incorporate as well if you have other components of Ruby that you want to use within your system development. And EMA slope, just like the MMA slope, is going to be what is the slope of the slow-moving EMA. If it's sloping up, it's going to be green. If it's sloping down, it's going to be red. We have the ATR. This is the stepped ATR. And this is whether or not price is above or below that ATR. And pivot reversals, this is a little bit hard to see, but see if I can do an example. So the pivot reversals, as I continue the chart, as you can see, the pivot points are going to continue as price progresses, and every reversal for that pivot point, the reversal formed here, and this is when the signal is going to be generated from BloodHound. And then again, you have a reversal pivot, and it's going to form another bar here. So that's handy if you're using a pivot reversal strategy in your automated system development. Here we have the price comparison over the 50% Fibonacci ratio. So again, the Fibonacci's are going to be projected on the previous closed pivot range. And as I progress the chart, we can see whether or not prices above or below that 50% mark on that Fibonacci. So continuing the chart, it is going to continue to update whether or not prices above or below that Fibonacci percentage. And with that, you can adjust it so if you don't want to look at the 50%, you can plot all these different Fibonacci percentages for your system. Next we have the neutral bars. These are going to be the gray bars. The gray bars are exhaustions in price movement. They signify sideways movement in price or potential reversals in price as well. Alright, so now we're going to build a very simple strategy using shark indicators, BloodHound. And I have an example here, and we can just sort of reverse engineer what I've created. So, see if I can zoom in here a little bit and put them a little bit together so you can see them. Alright, so we've got a few different little blocks here, and this is going to be your logic matrix that closed itself. So yeah, we have this logic matrix, and these different blocks are either going to be solver nodes, which we can use our existing nodes. So we've got a few here. These are the examples that I just showed you. So we're going to work with the entry trade signal. So once we select that, this block is going to be formed, and if we go to the entry signal to the end result, we can see that every single time that an entry signal has been formed, it will then output with BloodHound. But for our system, we want to have a couple more conditions to it, because that's going to be a little bit too simple. We are going to take the entry signal, and we're going to use this AND using a logic node. So we're going to use this AND logic node that pops up. And then we're going to use another existing node, which is the price comparison to the 50% Fibonacci. So that is that guy right here. And then we're going to want both of these conditions to be met. So we're going to have the entry trade signal is going to be true, and the price comparison to the Fibonacci is going to be comparison as well. So if it's a long signal, price is going to be above. If it's going to be a short signal, price is going to be below. We're going to plug those into this and then we have our end result. So that will filter out the trades here, and we have our entry right there. Simple as that. And for our exit condition, we're going to use a 2-point. We're going to use a standard indicator from NinjaTrader. This is just a MACD crossover. So we're going to go into our solver nodes, and we're going to look for a crossover. So the solver indicator crossover, and we are going to select the MACD. I already selected it, but there's it. MACD, and we're just going to use default settings for that, and we are going to use that for our solver. So once we have our exit conditions, which we just went over, we're going to have our MACD crossover exit, as well as an extended trade signal crossover. So it's either the MACD is going to happen, that crossover is going to happen, or using this OR logic node, or the extended trade signal is going to happen, and that is going to result in a signal to exit our trades. So again, simple as that, we have our entry using the entry trade signals and the price comparison of the 50% Fibonacci. When both of those conditions are met, it's going to enter the trade. And for our exit, we've got our MACD exit. So whenever the MACD crosses over or the extended trade signal is formed, it will result in an exit of that trade. Now, we can go ahead and give that a test. So we're going to go into our strategy analyzer, and we are going to use NQ we have, and we're going to backtest it. And again, it's a very rudimentary strategy that I just whipped up, and it's just to give you a sense of how quickly and easily you can make an automated system and be able to test it very quickly to see if it's something that's worth doing some reiterations of, or if it completely flops, you can sort of analyze exactly what's going on and how you can tweak it. And with Shark Indicator's BloodHound is you can do that without any programming knowledge and extremely quickly. So instead of having an idea that you're like, well, it might work, but let's hire a programmer, and 5 weeks later at whatever expense, you might finally have it, and you're like, oh, it didn't work. That's unfortunate. So this is a way for you to test it yourself, and very quickly and very cost effective as well. So now that we have Shark Indicator's BlackBird, this is another tool from Shark Indicators which allows you to go in more detail about how you build and test your automated systems. It has a whole lot of functionality that I am not going to go over today, but I would highly recommend if you're interested in it. There's plenty of videos, as well as they do, I believe, weekly or maybe twice weekly tutorial videos for some of their different software. For this example, we're going to use BlackBird to do a very simple backtest. So we're going to go ahead and load up the template. So you got the LTS Ruby template, and our entry signal is going to be October webinar entry, and our exit signal is going to be the MACD exit. And there's not going to be any type of profit targets, but if you want a profit target, you can select. There's a few default ones that you can adjust, or you can get into more detailed customized ones, as well as additional orders for more advanced systems. But because it's a very simple strategy, very simple demonstration, we are going to keep it as such. Again, we're not going to have any stop loss. The MACD crossover, as well as the extended signal crossover or extended signal formation, is enough of a precursor for an exit condition that is safe enough to prevent any catastrophic trades as well. So we've got that. I'm going to go click OK. And I'm going to show on the chart. Use a 15-minute chart, and we're just going to do last 3 months or so. Make sure sometimes it's a little bit finicky, which I believe it is hung up, so excuse me 1 sec. I'm just going to go ahead and close that, and close the chart, and do it again. So again, we're going to go to the strategy analyzer. We're going to backtest on the NQ chart that we had up. Backtest. BlackBird. We've got our entry and exit set. We test here on 15-minute for the last 3 months. I believe this might take a NinjaTrader restart. So let me go ahead and do that quick. Excuse me, it usually doesn't hang up like that. It's very uncommon, but when it does, usually a quick restart will do the trick. So then we're just going to go back, strategy analyzer. Thank you. Select indicators BlackBird. It's all set. And hopefully third time's a charm. And there we go. Finally. So we've got the performance results for this. You know, don't really pay any attention to these figures because it's a very short back test, very rudimentary strategy that has really no refinement to it, but just shows you that you can build a system that quickly. And then once we're on the chart, you can see where these executions took place, and then you can go and further analyze exactly how it worked. So we're going to look at the October webinar entry, and we can see we had entry signal here at the open of the next bar, takes the trade, and here we have, again, we have the signal, open of the next bar, takes the trade, and simple as that, we have the system operating, mildly profitable, but you know, again, and take that for a grain of salt. But what we can do is we can look at, oh, I want to refine something. I noticed something when I went through and analyzed how the system performed. I'm like, okay, I think I can do a filter to eliminate some of these trades. What I can do is the sideways stuff. I want the system to filter out any trade that doesn't coincide with this slow moving average. So let's go ahead and do a simple filter. Go ahead, chart. And we're going to pull up BloodHound again. We're going to go into our template. And we're going to go into our logic. And we're going to go with our webinar entry. So now what I'm going to do is introduce a third necessity in order to make the signal, is we're going to add an EMA slope. So what this EMA slope solver is going to do is it's going to say if the EMA slope is sloping upwards, we will not take any short positions because we have the overall slower trend, the overall market movement is going upwards. I don't want to take any short trades. So just by adding this simple solver node, and it's an existing node, and we're just going to use EMA slope, EMA slope. Plug this into our and we're going to go ahead and just save it. And now we can jump back and retest it. So you can see we did as quickly as that. We added something new, something that we observed, and we want to make a reiteration of our automated system. And we can just go ahead, and because I saved it, it is going to be the same October webinar entry, same conditions, and we can go ahead and run it again. You can see that a little bit better. It limited a lot of trades, so I believe the average trade has gone up considerably. Overall, very similar performance, but you can now notice that because of that slope, we eliminated trades and we ended up having a little bit more profitable of a system. Again, take it for a grain of salt. This was a very quickly created system. I definitely would not recommend going and taking this and running it live. That'd be a bit foolish. It takes a lot more reiterations, more testing, more observations to see how the system performs with what parameter settings and what have you. So that is a quick demonstration of how you can take an indicator in a system like Ruby, integrate it with Shark indicators, BloodHound, and build yourself an automated system very quickly without any programming knowledge. If I moved a little bit quick, that's understandable. At first, like with any software, it can be a little bit daunting, but there's a ton of resources and the learning curve is not as dramatic as you may think. So there's no programming necessary. It's just using that logic matrix and some of the nodes that are provided into creating your system. All right, so that was that. And now we're just going to jump into what is included with Ruby. So it's the Ruby system for both NinjaTrader 7 and 8. This also includes the Vision Renko bar type that I went over in a little detail earlier. Includes a comprehensive use and trading manual. And what that manual does is it's going to look at all the different parameters of Ruby and what they do and how each different change of the parameters will affect the system and how you can use it for your own trading. It also includes free updates and free support, as well as for you webinar attendees. You can get up to 1 hour of free setup and consulting. So if you have some questions as to say you trade CL on a 50-minute and you're a swing trader, you get Ruby and you're like, I have no idea what parameters I need to use, what will be the most optimal settings to use, we can schedule a time that I can look at it and help guide you into some different settings or some different feedback and to sort of take a chunk off the learning curve. And you also get this webinar's BloodHound template and BlackBird template as well. And I know a few questions have been popping up, and I'll be sure to get to them here shortly. Just want to cruise through the rest of this, and I'll be sure to go over them in our Q&A. Also with this, I have been plugging Shark Indicators, BloodHound, and BlackBird software quite a bit, and is that because they have done a great job in help promoting this event for me. So if you've seen their email, and that is why you're here today, you can thank them for that, and I also thank them very much. And as such, because I'm partnered with them, I can give you guys a bit of a discount if you choose to purchase Ruby and either BlackBird or BloodHound. So I can send you a link here in the chat here if you're interested. Again, if you're not really familiar with what BloodHound or BlackBird is, if my demonstration wasn't detailed enough, there are tons of resources that you can check out. And I suppose now is a good time as any. We will have the random draw for those currently in the webinar. So I'm going to have Jared, who is behind the scenes now, slowly spinning the wheel of random numbers, and he is going to help me select who the winner is. So whenever he gets around to it, he will send me a message, and I'll let you know who wins that shortly. All right, and the results are in. Michael Corona. Congratulations, Michael Corona. You win the Lucrum Ruby system and the lifetime license. My email will be here in the next slide, so you can go ahead and send me an email. Let me know that you won, and I'll be happy to activate your license and get that out to you. Again, congratulations to you. And now we are going to go over the Q&A segment. So let me just catch up and make sure that I've got everything. Vadim asked if I have a NinjaTrader 8 template as well for BloodHound. I do have it. I think there's a little bit of cross-compatibility between 7 and 8 with the template that I have. So this week I'll actually be going over and redoing the template for NinjaTrader 8 to make sure that it is compatible, but the outputs should all be there. How far back can you go on backtesting? Usually it depends on your data provider and how much historical data you have. For me, usually it's about 7 years, depending on if you want tick data. Tick data is usually a lot less, but for the demonstration that I had, minute data is usually ample for testing purposes, which then goes back to, I believe, about 7 years. Let me just Can you show examples of yesterday 500 tick bar chart for day trading? Sure. Let me just go ahead and connect, and then I'll move my screen over so I can share that quick. James asked all for 395. The BloodHound and BlackBird is not included for the 395. What is included for the 395 is just the lifetime license of Ruby, as well as the Vision Renko and necessary support with it. George asks, I am not a computer guy and have no ability to program. My approach to trading is quite simple but effective. Uses a slope EMA to define the trend, and short-term MA is my trigger. There are a couple of other definitions for exit. Could this work for you? Absolutely. Definitely for something as simple as that. There's a lot of components in your simple strategy that I just did in my example for BloodHound, so I think that could work very nicely for you to have, that you can just start building and testing these systems for you there. I just loaded up Ruby on ES. Just use a continued contrast on that 500 tick with default settings. So I think you guys can see that here. Alan asked, what is a realistic amount of time to become proficient in this? That's a very difficult question to have a definitive answer to. There's definitely going to be factors into your general computing proficiency. But in terms of making a simple strategy like I did, I would say no more than an afternoon's worth of work. Maybe watching some tutorial videos on just the basics of BloodHound. You could do what I did and make a simple strategy, I'd say realistically in an afternoon. Your definition of proficient, there are some things that are a lot more complicated, a lot more detailed, that would probably take a lot more time in order to somewhat master. David Chaos, does Ruby update the Fibonacci levels dynamically? Yep, as the chart progresses with the pivot points, the Fibonacci's will automatically update as those pivot points adjust. Michael asks, what third-party vendors can you incorporate with Ruby? I think it's hard to answer. I'd say almost all of them, because you can take components of different third-party indicators and software, and you can take components of Ruby, and you can either mend them together, use components of such to work together. So hard to answer that, Michael. All right, it looks like we're about the 45-minute mark. If anybody else has some more questions, I'll answer some regular questions if you have any. Is there a special link to sign up? If you're interested in any of the offers between Ruby or Shark Indicators, BloodHound, BlackBird, you can scroll up a little bit in the chat. I can link it again. It is the Lucrum Ruby or lucrumtradingsystems.com/bloodhoundwebinar.php. All right, I think that about wraps it up. If I didn't answer your questions, or you have any more specific questions that you would like to ask me, feel free to send me an email at phil@lucrumtradingsystems.com, or you can reach me directly at 602-888-3006. Thank you all very much for joining me here today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to help. Thank you all very much for being here. Have a wonderful afternoon.
All right, I just want to give a special thank you to Phil of Lucrum Trading Systems for his great presentation today. Just a reminder that everyone in attendance here today will receive an on-demand recording of today's event. Please keep an eye out for that email. NinjaTrader ecosystem is pleased to sponsor these weekly vendor events as a value-added service for our clients. If you find value in these events, we hope that you will attend them on a regular basis. But we also like to remind you that the information provided in this presentation today was that of Lucrum Trading System and not of NinjaTrader's. All information was for educational purposes and should not be construed as trading advice. Again, we appreciate the time you spent with us today. Please enjoy the rest of your day. We hope to see you again in future webinars. Happy trading from all of us here at the NinjaTrader ecosystem.